Hello, my CV world. It's Lindsay here, back with another video. I'm so excited for the first time on our YouTube channel. We have Brian here. Brian, thanks for joining us. Can you talk about how many years you've worked at CooperVision?
Yeah, I've been with CooperVision since 2009. And when I first started, I worked primarily in the gym, in the fitness area of CooperVision's wellness program. And then it's blossomed from there. So since 2009, I started just in the, it was a Fairport office in the gym, and then I started coming to the West Henrietta sites and the Scottsville site and getting to meet everybody there and focusing pretty much on fitness. And then in the last several years, we started talking more about mental health, which is really very important to talk about mental health as part of the wellness program. So I've recently joined the Inclusion and Diversity team. My title is still Wellness. I'm a Senior Global Wellness Specialist, but I now sit under the Inclusion and Diversity, which is an area I love to be in.
That's a long title.
It is.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And one thing that Brian and I would like to talk to you guys today about is mental health and mental health awareness. This is just an open conversation. Brian and I are not experts. We are not doctors. But I figured since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, that we should kind of get the conversation starting, let people know some programs and some resources that we have at CooperVision, but also, there's a stigma behind it, so we'll try to loosen that up. And again, we are not doctors, just having an open conversation with each other and you about mental health awareness.
Right, and it really is all about the conversations. If we, again, not being professionals in the mental health field, but having conversations and being able to talk about mental health makes that stigma lessen.
Yes.
And so I'm so excited to be here with you and the My CV World crew to just have the discussion.
Yeah, I don't think that, I've ever seen anything like this, that we, just plan to have a quick conversation. But let's kick it off with my first question of our conversation.
Okay.
What does mental health awareness mean to you, Brian?
It means, just like I just said, having conversations. Someone told me once that if we broke our arm, maybe we were in a biking accident and we broke our arm and we wouldn't come to work and we would not be able to just fix it on our own. We'd be in too much pain, so we would go to an emergency room. And maybe we would need surgery, and then there'd be follow-up, and then there'd be physical therapy. And we might be out of work for a little bit of time, and then we would come back as soon as we were able to come back. And that's what I look at with physical health. Mental health is the same thing. We just don't, it's not as easy to say, I broke my arm. So when we have mental health issues like depression, anxiety, things that I call situational mental health issues, sometimes we need to have them looked at, and sometimes we need to go to a doctor or to a counselor or to a therapist, or maybe even just to a friend or someone we trust, and have those conversations. It all starts with having the conversations, because we need to treat mental illness like we do physical illness. Maybe not every time we feel sad, have to see the doctor, but every time if there's patterns of sadness or patterns of behavior that just don't seem right to us, maybe it's time to talk to somebody.
Yeah. And I think that it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
I think a lot of people hold in their emotions or their feelings or whatnot because they want to be strong. And I know when I was grieving, when my mom passed away, I said to myself, don't cry, you have to be strong. Right. And then I thought to myself, it's okay to cry. It's okay to not have to be strong. Like, you wear your emotions on your sleeve, and that's okay. It's okay to not be okay.
Right. And I think that it's okay to not be okay is a very good phrase for people to get to understand. I'm guilty of many, many years of being, fake it till you make it, smile until it really feels true. Like, almost what I was saying was, put your sad or unhappy feelings down deep inside and don't address them. And now that when you say that it's okay to not be okay, it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need to sit in that a little bit. You talking about the grief you experienced with your mother, that just doesn't go away one day.
No.
So it's something you learn to deal with. And it's something, okay, what skills have I learned that when this grief resurfaces or becomes kind of intense,
Mhm.
here's what I can do, and it's okay to not be okay during those times.
And you get to that point, no matter what hardships you're going through, when you realize, like, this is not healthy. I shouldn't have to feel like this and have this dark cloud over my head. So it's, knowing when you need to get help or seek conversation or just talk to somebody about it. Sometimes when we get something off our chest, we automatically feel better.
Yes. And I think it's important to know who there is to talk to before you need them.
Mm-hmm.
So my big thing is, before there's a crisis, find out what there is. Because when you're in crisis mode and something has happened, maybe that's triggered something in your life, a depression, anxiety, grief, all of a sudden you need help. And it's not the best time to be looking for help.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk about that later today
Yes.
in this conversation about where to find the right help.
Yes. And you know what? I can honestly say that Career Vision has a lot of options available. And, we will touch base with that a little bit later on. But I think it's important to say that you are never alone.
Right.
You have people around you, HRBPs and so on and so forth, which we'll talk about later on. But Brian, what do you think some of the biggest challenges are in society with mental health issues, like stress from work, stress at home?
Yeah. I think it's mostly, you nailed it, it's stress.
Mm-hmm.
And we all deal with stress on a daily basis. And stress is important. Stress builds us. It makes us strong. But too much can break us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to learn that balance of how do we manage the little stresses in our lives. Now, there's certain diagnoses people can have with different mental illnesses. I'm talking more about the situational, the depression, the anxiety, those types of things, that when we start to feel, like you said, I don't think it's normal that I'm feeling this sad every single day. I'm normally not this unhappy. And then let's find out what is behind that. So there's stigma to mental health too, and the more we can talk about it and have this conversation and have other conversations like it, we start to chip away at that stigma a little bit. And culturally, there's different stigmas to mental health for different cultures all around the world. So we're not just talking just one place, it's all over. So it's important to have these conversations, but it's mostly more important to find safe ways to have these conversations. So it doesn't mean we just start talking to anyone about anything. I always tell people, find someone you can trust, something that's a safe environment for you, a safe person, and start to have the conversation.
And I think also, for me, I'm always smiling and happy and bubbly and talking to people. And when I'm not that, I have multiple people ask me, what's wrong? What's going on?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? Because you're not yourself.
Right.
I did want to share the importance of, just because someone looks okay on the outside, you never know what they're truly going through on the inside.
Right. And because we all know what it's like to put that facade on. And, like I said, fake it till you make it. I went through my own, back in 2012, I think it was, I went through a 2-year episode of depression that it was triggered by a life-changing event, and it didn't go away. And I lived in that for 2 years, but I was one of those people that just faked it. I put on a smile, I put on, I had to be motivating at work, and I'd go home exhausted because I was putting on this charade for everybody. But the longer I went in this area without seeking help and not reaching out to anybody, the deeper it got. And it was harder for me to crawl out.
What are some strategies that someone could use to cope with this?
Well, I think, if you were to Google how to cope with depression or anxiety or that type of thing, you're going to come up with the standards: exercise, get more sunshine, take a walk in nature. And those are all great things, and they're wonderful things. And they're hard to do when you're in an episode of being absolutely sad. I've worked with many people who, that's the advice. Let's just go out and get some vitamin D. And right now it's a beautiful sunshiny day. But if you have a hard time even getting off the couch, or even taking a shower sometimes,
it's not quite helpful.
It's not going to be, okay, let me go out and walk and expect everything to be better. So there's those things that we could do that help our mental health anytime. But if we need a little bit more help, it's important to understand that and know that nothing's wrong with you because those things don't work.
Yeah.
And they work for many.
Yeah.
But for certain situations, it might not be the best advice.
I want to go back to about what we talked about, the stigma behind mental health. And I found a quote online, and I wanted to share it because I feel like it really sums up what we're trying to capture here. The stigma is strong, it affects all of us, and people who are impacted by mental health issues are really sensitive to that.
Yes.
How can we as individuals try to get rid of that or to be more adapting to that stigma? What can we do?
I think it's like, we don't want everyone going around, are you okay, are you okay, are you okay? But if it's someone you know, or if it's someone that you feel you have a relationship with and you see something's off, maybe all it takes is that, are you okay? With what you just read, we have an agency, it's national, but we have a branch here in town called NAMI. It's a National Alliance on Mental Illness. And they, according to their research, it takes 11 years for most people from the first sign of a mental illness to seek treatment.
Wow.
That's 11 years. Go back to that broken arm. Imagine you broke your arm and you waited 11 years.
Yeah.
Your arm would never be the same.
No.
And there'd be so many things in life you can't do. So think about that length of time. What can we do to shorten that time for people listening? I think listening is the number one. So when we say to someone, are you okay? And their answer is no. Let me sit down and listen.
Yeah.
Most often our natural instinct, okay, let me help them fix this.
Yeah.
What can I do? Let me make them laugh. Let me go, take them outside and walk around in the sunshine. But maybe they just need to vent. Maybe they just need to say a few words, or maybe more than a few words. So having the time and having the ears to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah. And Brian and I actually go well back from when he was working in our Fairport office. And you shared something with me that you did. You created, when you were going through your struggles, you had a canvas, and every day you wrote something on that. Do you want to share that with
Sure. It still hangs in my wall as a piece of art. Again, 2 years I spent in this place of sadness. When I talk about it, when I share my story, I talk about like it was a dark period. And what I would do is I would be motivating to everybody every day, all day. I'd come home and I would sit on my couch and watch 4 to 6 hours of television and not be able to get off the couch. And then I would just medicate with alcohol. And I always justified it because I'm not drunk, but I needed something to cut the sadness. And I was like, but it became a habitual thing, which was very unlike me. So I had to look at that behavior was different. My coping mechanisms were not great. And I was exhausted all the time. So something happened to me on April 1st in 2013 that a little sliver of light shined through. And in the darkest, I felt like I was in the bottom of this well, never able to get back up. I just wanted my old life of happiness back, and I didn't feel like it was in my grasp. So I saw that sliver of light, and I decided, let me do something for it. So I had heard about gratitude and what it could do for you, so I went and bought this enormous canvas at the craft store and a bunch of really cool colored markers. And I told myself, starting this day, I'm gonna write 2 things that I'm grateful for across the canvas. And I went around the outside, and I knew when I was in the middle I'd be done. And I didn't know how long it would take me, but I would do 2 grateful things a day. It took me 1.5 years to complete the canvas. And your name's on there as one of my grateful, I could find it, I remember that. And so when I look at this canvas that hangs in my meditation room at home, it always reminds me, all I have to do is see it, and it makes me feel grateful. And it reminds me of how gratitude helped me begin to crawl out of my depression. As soon as I started looking at things I was grateful for, I found more things to be grateful for. And before I started this project, I thought I had nothing to be grateful for. And the interesting thing is, if I start to read it from beginning to end, on April 1st, 2013, I can remember what I wrote, and then there was times I'm like, I have a comfortable bed. That's what I was grateful for that day. Pineapple.
Yep, pineapple.
And those types of things. And then as I got more into it, it gets more special, more beautiful, more intimate about the people and the things, and it's just such a work of art. So I've had nieces and nephews that I've shared that with, and they've created their canvases of gratitude, and they hang in their homes. And it's just a practice that proved that gratitude can help especially with the gratitude practice.
Yeah. And, I've adapted your idea. I just did it on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
And it was really helpful because on your darkest days or days when you're most depressed, you just search for anything.
Yes.
Like the pineapple. You
Yeah.
had pineapple one day. For me, it was an iced coffee.
Yeah.
I was grateful for this iced coffee because it made me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And then I agree, as the time went on, I met my now fiance, soon to be married, I would put his name down, or
Yeah.
I went to the mall, I got a great deal.
Yeah.
Like, it just really adapts and it really clears your mind.
It does, and it makes your brain think differently.
Yes.
So what I was finding in the depression I was in, my brain was very cyclical, thinking the same thing on repeat. When I started this gratitude practice, it stopped that and made my brain start thinking on a different pattern.
So it's little simple things like
Yeah.
that you can help change the path of where your mind
Right.
is currently going.
Exactly.
Now, Brian, let's talk about some resources that are available for all Cooper Vision employees.
Yes.
Can you name a few to share with us?
Oh, there's two that come to mind. First is our Employee Assistance Program. You might, most people know it by EAP. There are free services for people. I've used them. Once I started coming out of my depression and I started feeling a little bit better, I then realized I need someone to help me. And so I used EAP, and I found a counselor that met with me 6 times, and it didn't cost me anything. And I had 6 sessions with this counselor who guided me through coming out of it. And what I learned from that counselor was I was trying so hard to get my old life back, which now I realize is impossible.
Yeah.
I crawled out of that depression by doing everything I learned to a much more beautiful life.
Yeah.
And a much better life than I could have even imagined having. And that was through EAP. Now, EAP, we have a brand new resource sheet. So I'm part of the Mind and Body Wellbeing, ERG, and we've come up with mental health resource guides for all of employees per location. So I'm going to share that with you. You can share it right after this with everyone here. And it mentions EAP as the first source. After that, there's a branch of EAP called Talkspace. And Talkspace it is free to people to use, but it's a little bit more immediate. So if you need help now, you could go to Talkspace, scan that little QR code that's on the sheet, and you can tell what it is you need, what it is, how soon do you need it, and then they pair you up with someone very quickly. And so I found Talkspace to be a lifesaver. I've helped over 5 people get on Talkspace and find someone immediately to help them.
Wow. Well, that's a really nice tool to have.
Yeah.
I've used the EAP program before, for mental health reasons, but you also are able to use it for other things,
Yes.
correct?
And family members too. So it's free to us and anyone in the household. So you could use it for finance information, for if you need a lawyer, child care, elder care, all types of stuff on the EAP program.
So, things that could potentially lead you into depression, like, say if you're getting divorced and you don't know really where to start with, instead of
Right.
going down, you have resources available to kind of help with that.
Yes, and that's what I like about this resource sheet, is it's there, so once you see it, I encourage people to put it somewhere in case you ever need it. I would have thought I'd never needed it prior to 2012, but something happened in my life that triggered this depression, and I was in crisis mode for almost 2 years, and I didn't need to be there that long. So I encourage people, keep it someplace that if you need it, it's going to be much easier for you. If you do find yourself in crisis mode someday, it's an easy way to get help.
And of course, if you do lose the paperwork, you can always talk to your HRBP.
Yep.
They will be able to help you and lend an ear. Just don't be in silence,
Yes.
right? Don't hold it in, just talk.
Well, you said it earlier too, you're never alone, and I know that sounds cliche,
Yeah.
but it's so true.
It's true.
It is so true. There's always someone, and even if you feel you don't have someone in your life that you could talk to, on this resource sheet is other things that are global or national across the U.S. and things that are local here to Rochester, of numbers you can call and speak to someone immediately, of free services there too.
Wow.
So there's, on this resource sheet, I think there's over 12 numbers or agencies you can call. Some are very specific to get immediate help.
There are no roadblocks in order for people to get help.
Right. We think there are when we're in those places.
In the situation.
Yeah. And that's why the more we can do to change the stigma, that when we find ourselves in these situations, we think, oh, let me get help.
Yeah. It's so helpful to have this information at your fingertips on your phone, which you are usually glued to most of the time. But I want to know what we have planned for May for Mental Health Awareness.
Right, so for mental health, we have two, I could speak on the inclusion and diversity part. We have two events happening. One is in partnership with African Descent and Mind and Body, and we're bringing a guest speaker to come in to talk about different cultures and struggles with mental health, talking about stigma culturally, and I'm excited about that one. And then for women, we paired with the Women's Impact Network, and we are starting a panel. We have some people on the panel from here in West Henrietta that are going to speak on behalf of women's health, physical health, and how it affects our mental health. And that's going to go all month long in the month of May. So that both of those are going to be coming out very soon. Invites, so we have something specifically for women, and then we have the cultural issues with mental health and stigma. And then my favorite thing, it's called Every Day in May. Every Day in May is a program that starts May 1st that if you choose to do it, and you'll get an invite, everybody will get an invite on that too, that if you choose to do it, you just print out the calendar and you decide what's one thing I can do every day in May to simply feel a little bit better. And it's a challenge I started back in 2006 as a way to get into the wellness and health. I just wanted to feel better. And so it changed my life. And we talked about gratitude. My daily gratitude practice changed my life, but Every Day in May really changed my life. So what I'll probably do after talking to you is I'm going to be on the road for the first 2 weeks of May, but I'm going to take my calendar with me, and I think I'm going to do a gratitude practice because I kind of fallen out of it. So if you want to join me on that, you could do a gratitude practice and think of maybe 1, 2, 3 things, write them on the calendar of what you're grateful for every day, and then see how you feel on May 31st. So I like Every Day in May. It could be a physical challenge, but it could be a mental health challenge too.
And with partnership with both Mental Health Awareness
Yes.
Month and Every Day in May.
Yes. We are also, Cooper Vision is going to take part for the first time in the NAMI Walks. So NAMI Walks is on May 25th. It's on a Saturday. An email is coming out on that too, where we're going to sponsor the walk this year. And that's their biggest fundraiser of the year, and it just brings thousands of people together to walk through the park on a beautiful, hopefully beautiful Saturday morning in May. And so look for information on that too, because that type of thing, bringing people together to walk as a company and bring your family members and your friends, talk about changing stigma. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. I would suggest that everyone whether they're on Facebook, Instagram, to follow NAMI because they have great resources, but also they share some events that they're doing in the community. And one that caught my eye, but it's all sold out, was it was a cat cafe, and it was like a reading one. You can write in a diary, but that's all sold out. But NAMI is very important in Rochester, and they are all over.
Yes.
And even I went to a local bakery to pick up an Easter dessert, and they had cookies for sale to benefit NAMI.
Oh, that's right, they did.
So that's really exciting and an awesome tool if you just want to check them out on the social media platforms.
Because most everything NAMI offers is free, so they do these types of campaigns and fundraisers to pay for the services they offer throughout the year.
Yeah. So last question, so we wrap this up. What is the key takeaway from this conversation? If anyone that is watching this has one thing from this whole interview we have done, what is the key takeaway?
Well, I'm going to look at it 2 different ways. So if you're someone who is feeling pretty good, your mental health is good, I encourage a takeaway to do something. What can you think of one thing you could do to help change stigma in your world? Whether it's your little part in the world here at work, your part in the world at home, what's something you could do to help change a little bit of stigma? And like we started off this whole talk, it could be as easy as just having a conversation with your kids. I went to Easter at my in-laws, and my husband's cousin's daughter, she was like, I think she's 10, she had a shirt on that said sexy potato. And I thought that was strange. And so finally someone asked her, what does sexy potato mean? And she said to us as a 10-year-old, well, we're all sexy potatoes. And so it's going on through her school. Talk about no matter what you look like, no matter what you could be a sexy potato. And because if you look at potatoes, maybe they're not the sexiest of vegetables. I thought it was a cute thing. I've never heard of it before. She's like, we can all be sexy potatoes no matter what. And I was, so someone had that conversation with her and that school, that was just common knowledge for her to say that.
Wow.
So think about things you could do to help change this stigma. And then if you're feeling maybe that your mental health needs a little help, reach out. That's one thing. That's the big takeaway. Look at the resource, see what is one thing I could do, maybe what's one agency I could reach out to, or what is who's a person I could talk to that I feel safe with and that is a good surrounding for me to do that. Again, you and I are not professionals.
No.
We are just people who have dealt with mental health issues, and we've seen loved ones deal with mental health issues, as most people have. And so the statistic now is every 4 out of 5 people have dealt with mental health issues in their lives, and that's just people who are reporting it. So there's lots of takeaways to do on either side of it, and I hope we talked enough and had enough conversation to get it started.
Yeah, and you know, you don't want 11 more years to go by.
Right.
If we can help in any way, and if this video brought you any encouragement, or even just pointing out the resources that are available, we can cut that 11 years down.
Well, you know, I shared a little bit about my story. You shared a little about your story. And when I do share my story of mental health and my illness with depression, it doesn't mean that depression's over. I have moments of depression on a regular basis, but now I have to learn the tools. So when we talked about getting out in nature, walking in some sunshine, eating maybe some healthy foods, moving more, those do work for me because I've done the work for the other part. So those, they might not work for everybody, but those do work for me. So finding the right things that work. It's not like I cured my depression. I have moments of depression all the time, but it's addressing them, and it's feeling, I want to end the way you started, to have those days where it's like, it's okay to not be okay, and have that be okay.
Yeah, and that will help the stigma.
Yes.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
And as long as you recognize that it's time to get help, you know, you'll get back to a sense of normalcy and all those things.
Absolutely.
So, Brian, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I enjoyed our conversation today.
Me too.
Again, Brian and I are not professionals, but we just share our struggles to hope that it will help somebody who may be going through this. If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out to me, Brian. We can connect you with those types of resources. Again, your HRBP. Use these benefits that Cooper Vision has. We are proud. Every poster I've ever seen, and especially around open enrollment time, and I know that's a quick period, but you know, we talk about these things at Cooper Vision because we're proud to offer them.
I also want to say that there's been some feedback that EAP wasn't the easiest source to use for people who needed something pretty quickly, and people let our benefits area know that, and that's where Talkspace came from. So if you've had struggles in the past, please give it another try. Please come back and check out Talkspace, or go back to the EAP program and find, because it's not, they've been becoming, these systems and these services for us have become vastly improved because of feedback from you. So I just want to let people know that they're so friendly and easy to use.
So we hope that everyone takes advantage of these tools that Cooper Vision offers. I'm definitely looking forward to what May brings, not only for Every Day in May, but also for all the activities that Cooper Vision has, and the sponsorship with the ERGs. And hopefully I'll see you at the walk, and hopefully we'll see some of our viewers at the walk.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next video. Bye.